There's so many things that they did within the last like 2 hours of like the post game that I'm just like, why was like it really felt like this was the idea for the full game, but they didn't have enough time, or like they didn't, or they were just like, oh well, no one really cares anyway. Like most people are gonna want to just power through the story anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. It just felt weird. Like I felt like there were enough like themes and like nuances within like. This sounds really dumb and heady for a fucking Pokemon plot, but like I felt like there was more there than what we were actually given, you know? Mm-hmm. I'm definitely looking into things, but where the fuck is the National Dex?
Well, while I was looking for that, welcome to Loosely Defined.
Oh shit! Hi. Hey friends.
Hello, friends and listeners of all places. I don't know. So welcome to Loosely Defined Week 2, Loosely Defined 2, Week 2. We're back, and last week we talked about a couple different things, some serious stuff, some silly stuff. This week we are going to dive directly into Pokemon, both Sword and Shield, which we touched on last week as we had kind of just... I guess not really just started playing, but the game had only been out for like a couple days when we recorded that episode. And now we've both beaten the game, or as Bo was saying, I guess I haven't completely beaten it yet, but we've both beaten the main campaign.
We've rolled credits.
Yeah. So we're going to give our like full review of the game and in the first part of the show, and then in the second part of the show, we're going to rank all 8 Pokemon generations. And we each have our own list. We'll talk it out. We'll go through each generation, explain what we like, what we don't like. And then at the end of the show, we will try our best to come to some sort of consensus and combine our lists into a official, loosely defined ranking of all 8 Pokemon generations,
so that if anyone,
from our perspective.
So that if anyone ever disagrees with you, if you happen to just 100% agree with our list, you can just tell other people that we're like the official Pokemon podcast or whatever, and say,
Absolutely.
well, like, look at their list. This isn't a matter of opinion anymore. You're just factually wrong. So, use us as evidence in any papers that you write. I'm actually
what other hour-long discussion about this is going to exist? I'm sure no one's ever talked about this before.
No one has ever had any kind of Pokemon discussion, I think, ever on the internet before. So we're really like pioneers in this.
Yeah, we're getting in early on this stuff.
We are the Poke pioneers.
I mean, it's only generation 8. Like,
it's still single digits. Like, what's wrong with everyone? Like, we're really jumping on the pack. Like, before we really jumped into the review of the game, I kind of wanted to touch on just the whole Dexit situation has grown more and more fascinating to me. The more like now that I've like finished the game. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm seeing just more, I don't know, Pokemon is just all in my time. It's been Pokemon and Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's been a big week for those, for Star Wars and Pokemon.
Yeah, those two indie franchises. But like, I've seen a lot of discussion about like, oh, at this point, like video game boycotts don't work in like the larger sense.
Yeah. And
like, no matter how much, because at first I was like, oh, it's just, gamer rage I guess, like, for those that aren't familiar, Dexit is it's played off of Brexit. Haha.
Yeah, I did not know it was called Dexit until like a few days ago. Someone said that to me, and I was like, that's hilarious. That like, was it the fans who were mad that were calling it Dexit?
I think so. I'm pretty sure they started like the hashtag GameFreakLied and hashtag Dexit like at the same thing.
I knew about the hashtag GameFreakLied, and I thought that was kind of funny. But at the same time, I was like looking into it, like, wait, did they actually lie and all that stuff? And,
okay, so here's the thing. So they kind of lied, like in terms of like, oh well, we're gonna put in all the animations and like the main thing that I keep seeing thrown back in Game Freak's face is that Game Freak saying that they're doing all new animations from the ground up, and then people dug into the game as people do. And no, it's just, like it's the same renders essentially as like the same structures as the ones from Sun and Moon. I was really just trying to figure out what the fuck Sun and Moon were called. I forgot. And like, it's not a big deal. The game, it doesn't look fantastic. Like, it's not like,
no, it's not Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, like Astral Chain is like my benchmark for like how good games can look on the Switch now. But like, I don't know, like the textures on the fruit in fucking Fire Emblem Three Houses. It was like PS1. It was horrible. Like it looked
right.
I'm not going to Nintendo for next gen graphics because like it's Nintendo. Like I don't know. Like I feel like I have my expectations kind of laid out in that regard. But then
Pokemon I feel like has always, at least graphically, and I'll elaborate, but I don't mean this as like a negative, but they've always sort of lagged behind. Like they were using like Diamond and Pearl and even Black and White on the DS were using just fully sprites and like just some 3D models like pretty late in the game for that kind of stuff. Like by the end of the DS's life, there was like a lot of like fully 3D games, like even like the Mario platformers. Or sure, like Spectrobes.
No, laugh. I'm being dead serious. Like the more I think about Spectrobes, the more I'm just like, that is the Pokemon game that we deserved, and Disney just. I'm genuinely hoping Disney has this like whole game reordering thing under their umbrella. I really hope they look back into it because like it's better than Pokemon. I'm gonna say it. Like from what I remember, Spectrobes was better than Pokemon. Just with it.
Okay.
Only with like the only reason Pokemon is better than Spectrobes is that Pokemon has Pikachu. Like, I mean, straight up, like Pokemon has and they're like
years of nostalgia built up and all that. What?
Yeah, like so. Kind of going back into the like, do video game boycotts work? Like, was Dexit like Pokemon was the fastest selling Switch game? Like, sold over 6 million copies in the first weekend. Like,
it's easy to forget that Pokemon is the most profitable like media franchise of all time. Like
it's not just
as much as we've been talking about like Star Wars and other stuff, like as much as people are like, oh, Marvel movies are taking over, it's like, just don't forget that meanwhile Pokemon makes more money than all of that shit.
And it's not just the games, it's fucking everywhere. Like now that Detective Pikachu is like,
right?
I would call that a success. Like, I still haven't seen it, sadly. I mean, I don't know. From what I've been told, I don't need to see it, which is an upsetting thing to be told. But like,
I think it's not made for our demographic. But I thought, as a fan of the games, it was a lot of fun. I'd recommend it. I think you'd get a kick out of it. But
like, I'm sure I'll see it eventually.
But yeah, exactly. Though it like, not only do you have, you know, all the success of the games, merchandise, obviously, that's probably where the bulk of it comes from.
Oh, yeah.
And all that. But you also have now box office success, which is what, like, the reason Marvel is one of the most, like, not that there isn't Marvel merchandise, but the real money that the Marvel makes is
there's
from
no Marvel merch.
Yeah. No, but the real money Marvel makes, like, or has made historically, now comes from, like, the 25 billion they've made at the box office. But, like, Pokemon has made, you know, probably more than that just off of the merchandise alone, and then game sales, which typically make more money than movies because games are $30-$50, but
it's just like, if a kid really wanted to, and like I feel like I did for a while, like Pokemon was as legitimate as just like sports, or not, I mean, not in that sense, like I could go home, play or on my way home, I would be playing Pokemon or whatever. Like after school, I'm playing Pokemon on my DS or whatever, and then I can watch the show, and then I can get the trading cards, and then
trading cards. That's like a whole other market that they've like completely dominated in.
Like back then, I could sometimes go to the theater and see the Pokemon. Right. You know, like I remember
over 1,000 episodes
DVD
of the
releases.
Anime and something like 20 movies.
Like you can. It's hard to avoid Pokemon, honestly.
And we have not even mentioned Pokemon Go, which
my god,
I don't think I'm pulling this out of my ass. I'm pretty sure that there have been over 1 billion downloads of Pokemon Go.
Like I'm gonna Google it, keep talking about your impressions.
It is by far it is still currently the most played mobile game. Unless that's changed in like the past like month or so, but like last I checked, that was true.
July 31st, Pokemon Go has racked up 1 billion downloads from Engadget.com.
That is a significant chunk of the world's population. Now, granted, I'm sure there's some doubling up there where a few people have either multiple phones or multiple downloads or whatever. But I mean, like, let's just even if you round that down by like 100 million, you're still talking about like way outselling any of the handheld games or main series games. You're still talking about outselling probably, I'm assuming, any game in history except for, I don't know, again, maybe another mobile game like Angry Birds or something. But even that, but I mean, we all remember just 2-3 years ago when Pokemon Go was just so dominant that it was all over the news. Everyone had it, even people who had never played Pokemon, and then it led into some really high sales for Pokemon Sun and Moon. Like, that stuff did translate, and I'm sure if it weren't for Pokemon Go, we wouldn't have had the movie, and all that stuff. So we've been in for the last 3 years, like, the second big Pokemon like renaissance, a big like wave of Pokemania, because like it was massive and unavoidable in the 90s, and then I think when we were growing up with it, it was like back to just kind of being for kids again. But then Pokemon Go came out, and now like it's just again I mean, it was making money that whole time, don't get me wrong, but like it's even bigger than it probably has ever been since the 90s now,
And I am totally okay with it. Like so we started the group chat with like, it's called Trainers of Galar. I forgot what the Galar trainers, whatever. But like just our group chat full of like, hey, I've got this. Can I trade whoever for whatever I need? Like once I beat the game and I finally got a Ditto or whatever, like just put in the group chat like, yo, I got score bunnies. Hit me up. Like like I love
it's
that.
It's such a communal game.
Yes.
It's like part of why it's like, I mean, obviously there's people like there's definitely a reason to be a little cynical about like they always release 2 games and like they split it. It's like that's true, but I still can't like explain how nice it feels to be like, all right, I got Sword or I got Shield, who has Sword, and then you like the fact that one of our friends hit us up and was like, what game do we need? Like, does everyone have Sword? I'll get Shield. Like, does everyone have Shield? I'll get Sword. That's huge, and it bakes into literally as far as when you're purchasing the game, the fact that you're playing this as a communal thing.
It's... And I think I guess we're just going to roll into the impressions of the game at this point, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, at this point, yeah.
Yeah, like, so I really fucking loved it. Like, I didn't...
It was great.
I wasn't expecting... Because I feel like we talked about this last time. I was not excited when I first saw the trailer, like the first reveal for this game.
Yeah, we mentioned that last week.
Yeah, like... And I think from there, it was just the slow building of like, okay, well, Sword Dog. Like, yeah, Sword Dog was the confirmation that I will not skip this game. Like, I'm going to get this game. And then everything else was just a matter of like, okay, well, I know I'm going to get it. I'm not really going to pay attention to the news about it. Like, I'm not going to pay attention to the news in general, but also the news. In regards
Fuck
to
Pokemon, I'm turning off the news.
I don't care if he gets impeached. I just, whatever.
I don't want to even accidentally hear about this Sword and Shield nonsense. GameFreakLied.
God, that'd be crazy if fucking Trump just tweeted GameFreakLied.
Yo.
Like, the cultural impact that would have, for good or worse, I don't know, but the world would be different after that. Like,
what
much
would be
more
a
different.
bigger deal? Him tweeting #GameFreakLied or him tweeting #release the Snyder Cut?
God, I don't know.
I don't know which fan base would be more mobilized from that.
I feel like I'm okay. Back to the games.
I don't want to open that can.
Yeah, that's gonna be a whole. I don't know. Like the fact that I didn't know, like I saw like a trailer or two about like, oh, here's some new Pokemon here, like some new mechanics essentially. But being able to just like be surprised, like being able to get jumped in the tall grass by just a random, like Grimmsnarl, the evolution of Impidimp, like the really big goblin looking guy, did not know he was in the game. And then, so I saw an Impidimp in the wild and I was like, fuck this thing, and skipped it. And I saw on Twitter, like, someone evolved a Grimmsnarl and was like, oh, this is going to be, like, I immediately was like, okay, you are going to be my point. Like, you are now everything I need to find you. And I learned, oh, it's an Impidimp, whatever. I need to go back and find the Impidimp. I tweeted, like, I retweeted the video and I was just like, I need this. Someone please. Like, I forgot the actual tweet. And someone from the group chat hit me up and was like, yo, I have one. Mm-hmm. And like, one, it's just reinforcing like the social aspect of it. Cause I mean, one, being blind to it, like it was in my game. I could have easily gone back to whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it's rekindling that, like I feel like I'm playing Pokemon for the first time again almost. And it might just be because I played Sun and Moon, but not Ultra Sun and Moon, whatever it was called, right? Yeah. So I feel like I've taken like a really long break, and also Pokemon Let's Go was a huge letdown for me. So like I just feel like the last few releases haven't really like drawn me in as much, and now I'm just like I'm back on the subreddit. Like I am trying to find like the Max IV Dittos. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Let's Go, because I didn't play them, and I also didn't play Ultra Sun and Moon, and I barely played Sun and Moon. Like I didn't. Like, compared to other Pokemon games, I played very little of those games, and this will all be, factoring into the list later. But sticking with Sword and Shield for now, like, that Let's Go, those features from Let's Go, and I'm sure a lot from Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, that made their way into Sword and Shield were honestly some of the biggest surprises for me, and the quality of life improvements that came with a lot of that and a lot of the new stuff. Has just been, we talked about this last week, the games feel easier now, but not necessarily in the sense of like there isn't a challenge. It's just that there's less it's less time consuming, the challenge.
It's less tedious.
The challenge is there, but it's not tedious, exactly. Yeah. And I think the way wild Pokemon now work, which is just that they're roaming around and you don't necessarily have random encounters unless you happen to be running, and when there's like moving grass and you can't see what the Pokemon is, that can occasionally happen right in front of you as you're moving, but it's not that common. Like, I like being able to maneuver around Pokemon I don't want to battle, or maneuver directly towards a Pokemon I know I need to catch.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to grind for a certain Pokemon. If let's say I'm trying to train a flying type Pokemon, I can go into a route and look at all the grass types and just walk straight towards them. So I'm just taking out grass Pokemon like that.
Like a psychopath.
Up. Exactly. just roaming through and just, bunch of KO'd Maractuses.
Just throwing plastic straws at all of them.
But I thought that was great, and it didn't really hit me. It was in the wild area in the trailers, but I hadn't been keeping up with any of that. Again, I didn't play Let's Go, so when I actually got into the game and you get to the first route and there's just a bunch of Wooloos, little sheep, just roaming around, I was like, is this going to be what it's like the whole game?
Yeah.
And on like the second and third route, I was like, holy crap, this is like a major difference. Like, this is a huge gameplay change to remove random encounters that, like, I guess I was just late to, because I was shocked no one was talking about it, or at least no one in my sphere. And that's one of my favorite things about this new game, is how you go about battling, and like the route structure is so much better, I think, because of that. I also mentioned last week it felt like some of the routes were a little light on trainers. I still, after playing it, felt that way, except for a few of the bigger routes, which kind of require you to sort of find the trainers, because there's one towards the end of the game right before the Dark Gym that I still need to go back and battle all the trainers there, because once I realized how much was there and how much damage my team had taken, I was just like, screw this, I just want to get to the next gym. So I just skated through it. But yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of improvement on just sort of the minute-to-minute gameplay, which I really liked. And my issues with this game are minimal and mostly come from, like, things that are different, and my issue with them being just the fact that they're different, if that makes sense.
Wait, like what?
Well, I appreciate the story. Because I like its heavy emphasis on the gym challenge and everything.
Yeah.
And the fact that they still had like an evil team. Like I don't mind Team Yell just being the like fans of the dark type gym leader and Marnie, the rival, and I don't mind the champion, or the chairman of the league being the villain.
Chairman Rose.
But those two things were completely disconnected. So it felt like when you finish the Team Yell stuff, like before you even have taken out all the gyms, because it's like the 7th gym, then not randomly because they sort of tease it, but like more or less out of nowhere, this other plot thing starts like going into full gear, like right when you think you're about to finish the game. Part of this could also be the fact that I had beaten all the gyms and I was like, it's midnight, I'll stay up till 2 to finish the game. And then at 3, I had finally beaten the captured the legendary and still hadn't defeated the champion because there was all this other stuff I wasn't expecting.
Yeah,
and it made up for the fact that there was no in what.
It was just drawn out. Not only was it jarring, it was like, hey, so we're not only going to like, because I'm pretty sure they stop you literally as you're walking out onto the field. It's like I remember being like, okay, so like. Usually there's the legendary beat like before I get to the champion, but like I'm here, like I'm in the stadium, so I guess we're not doing that. And then they fucking pull you out of the stadium and there's just this long slog of like bullshit dialogue that's introducing things to you that have not been introduced before, and then a bunch of boring battles that like after you gone through the gauntlet of the other gym leader. And also I think the reorganizing of like instead of there being just a separate Elite Four, it's just it's gonna be a tournament of all the gym leaders. That
was cool.
Yeah, I really like that. And I'm sorry to like completely cut you off. Just
oh no, it's fine.
Just it felt like like not only was it jarring, like I would be okay if it was like a crazy twist at the end and blah 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 blah. Yeah. Like sure, it's unearned, but at least it's fun. In this case, no, it's unearned.
The only surprise came from the fact that it happened like when it did. Like I wasn't shocked when I realized, the chairman's the bad guy and his like assistant is also a bad person. But even then, like the whole buildup in that last like ending bit where you're fighting all the employees of the like all the different Pokemon League like people.
Yeah.
Not the gym trainers, but you know what I mean.
Like I forgot the corporation's name.
As you're fighting your way up the tower.
Yeah, it's like MC something. Yeah, MC Technology or something. I don't know.
Literally the only reason they're fighting you is because their boss, who's like the chairman's assistant, is like, he can't be disturbed right now. They're not actually involved in it. Yeah. Like they don't have, they're not bad people. Even the assistant person is not a bad person. They're just like.
They're just at work.
They're just at work, and she's like a slightly obsessive assistant who's like, no, you can't. He's working right now. You can't interrupt him. But like, she doesn't actually have any stake in the situation or motivation besides that. And so the fact that Team Yell is separate, the fact that her and their whole involvement in the thing is sort of disconnected, made me not really give a shit when it came down to the final. Like, oh no, we got to save the world from this legendary.
Yeah, I was just fuck the world.
Yeah, like I felt like they had some cool mystery going the whole time with Sonia and uncovering the mystery of, the champion and the Sword and Shield legendary Pokemon. But none of that stuff came together. And it made me appreciate, like this game, I appreciated the A plot of this game a lot more than I have other Pokemon games. In terms of just like, I am dedicated to being the champion. It is a huge focus of the game. Everyone around me, like the fact that when you like beat a gym, there's like just citizens of the town just waiting outside the gym being like, nice job, like go on, get your next badge. Like that shit is awesome.
Yeah.
But like whereas other Pokemon games maybe downplayed the gyms and like had these other plots that were hit or miss, at least they had like a through line that was able to do all the beats, and then like the gyms were sort of on the side. Like this one felt like, okay, we've made the gyms important, but we still need to have you catch a legendary at the end and have some sort of villain, so we're just gonna shoehorn that in. It didn't, it was just, it didn't, that part didn't mesh. But
I really want,
in the end the good still sort of outweighed the bad of that. But
I really want you to finish because I just want someone else to talk about it. Like all of the complaints that you just raised, I feel like if they had just taken, like I said, like the last 2 hours of the post game and just spread it throughout the rest of the game, like just pepper it in enough to like one supplement, like, because I agree, I love the gym challenges. I cannot name all of the gym leaders off the top of my head, but now I feel compelled to learn the gym leaders. Like I know Milo, Nessa, Bede, actually, shit.
Bede, yeah.
Yeah. Also. Opal. Yeah, Opal. I thought the like rivals were actually pretty good. I keep seeing a bunch of Twitter hate for Hop.
I liked Hop. I just thought he was kind of like, he actually had some development, even though it happened really quick and got resolved pretty immediately.
And then more development after the post game. Go ahead.
But I felt like rival wise, and we can get back more into this when we compare when we rank all of them. I felt like the rivals were good. But like Hop was set up from the beginning to be like your rival. Like most of the games, like even the ones that have multiple rivals have like the one main rival. Your Blue, your Barry from like Diamond and Pearl, May or Brandon, whatever in Gen 3. This one was like, that's Hop. And I was like, okay, he's just sort of a nice guy who wants to beat you, but not like, he's not going to be mean about it or whatever. So I was kind of like underwhelmed by that. I thought Marnie was really cool, but didn't get enough focus. And I didn't like Bede at all, to be honest. I thought, especially considering he was just using like psychic type Pokemon the entire time. Like once I realized that after the first battle, I was like, okay, so whenever I battle him, I just know to throw something in front of him that can sweep his psychic team, and then it's like not an issue. So like Hop, who had like the most varied team and it kept changing, that I really liked. Yeah, how his team would change each time you battled him while he was like figuring stuff out. I liked how they incorporated that into his character development.
His Wooloo sucks. I hate his Wooloo so much.
But he stopped using it after a while. And then but he was like the biggest actual challenge, whereas I felt like the others were kind of like I knew how to defeat them, even though I felt like, you know, they were more interesting to the actual story. Again, it's like the main story of just beating the gyms, becoming the best, having your rival Hop, having the gym, like, you know, Dynamax stuff kind of like play into it was all cool. It was just all the other story stuff that they had like on the side, I felt like didn't really come together well. But it wasn't like enough for me to dislike the story as a whole. And I feel like I've been going on about that for a while, so we can move into some other stuff if you want.
No, I mean, yeah, I agree with pretty much everything. Like I personally liked Bede, like when, or not liked, but like whenever he came on screen, I was like, yo, fuck that guy, and I feel like that was the point. So like once I realized, oh, okay, like I didn't know if he was actually going to show up. Like as often as I thought he was initially, because I was like, yo, if this dude keeps interrupting and just being a dick, I'm not going to enjoy this game. But like his development of just like, okay, fine, I'll like not even giving it, just accepting the offer to become the fairy type gym leader. Like I thought that was cool. And you know, I genuinely do want to have like just a longer discussion about like the post game, because it's been like it has been really bugging me. like I don't want to keep harping on it, especially since like we've been like relatively spoiler free. It's not like Pokemon spoilers are like a big deal, but you know,
we kind of talked a lot about the end of the game, but I hear what you're saying. We didn't get too specific. But I would consider this a spoiler discussion, so we can get into some more stuff. I definitely want to talk about, you know, because we mentioned when we were talking about Dexit and all that stuff that the game didn't necessarily look super great. That said, I feel like design-wise, like art design-wise, this was one of the best Pokemon games. Yeah. I think that the graphics weren't necessarily stellar or groundbreaking, but there was a lot of stuff that I had yet to see in a Pokemon game, and that really stood out to me.
Like the fifth gym was, to me, the standout. Like with the
fifth gym being in the Mushroom Town.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole route leading up to it, where you like tap the mushrooms and it like the light goes everywhere. Yeah. Like I thought that was great.
That was awesome.
I thought the area preceding that was really cool. There was a lot of like diversity and in terms of like biomes and whatnot throughout the game, which I think my favorite Pokemon generations typically have. I got a little annoyed when we got to when it was like the snowy area towards the end, because I find, like in a lot of things, I find snowy areas kind of boring, but that's just like a completely personal thing. But like different things like the 7th gym town, which was a cool surprise, like getting there and being like, what's going on here? And then you end up at the actual gym at the end. I thought that was really clever, the dark type gym. I also felt like there was some cool lighting I noticed when you were in that town that's kind of surprised me. And stuff like that, I think, really stood out when it was really good. And, you know, not to go back into the Dexit stuff too much, but like all the fans complaining that it wasn't actually that graphically like improved from the 3DS games and stuff, like you have to realize that this game looks good on the TV. It doesn't look again like as good as something like Breath of the Wild or even like Skyrim on the Switch does, but it's a different kind of good, you know? Like,
I mean, I think it looks better than Skyrim on the Switch. Like, I think
in a different way. I know what you're saying. Yeah. But when you blow this game up to the big screen, which you can play it on a full TV, it still looks just as good as it does on the handheld, if not better. And the fact is, if you took the 3DS games and put them on a TV screen, they would not look as good. Like there's a lot more pixelation, there's a lot less detail in certain things, and that's fine because they worked for those systems. But like this game was designed to be played as a handheld and as a console game, and while it doesn't quite reach like the full console Pokemon that everyone has been wanting since they were 10 years old, like this is, I think, a good step towards that direction that I don't think people are giving enough credit for. Like the fact that when you're standing in a town or even on a route, there's so much in the background that's like got detail and is appealing. Like even the fact that when you're approaching the Pokemon lab for the first time, you can like see it in the distance. Like those were little details that I don't think any other Pokemon game has done before, and I thought it was really impressive here.
I mean, I think it's just... I mean, when speaking about Dexit specifically, I feel like most of the, in my opinion, like the legitimate outrage is more about like the national Dex, and like we can talk about that.
Right.
If we want,
I mean,
like,
I guess that's specifically Dexit versus just like the GameFreakLied movement.
I'm fine with. I mean, oh yeah, I guess we should just call it GameFreakLied. I was about to say I'm fine with calling Dexit like just the catch-all for the general boycott for these games, but like in terms of the graphics, like I was like, one of the reasons I was initially upset at the reveal was because I was like, oh, this just looks like more Sun and Moon. And I wanted more of like a really big jump in graphical fidelity. Just, I mean, in terms of like general art style, like we keep saying like, oh, well, it's not Breath of the Wild and it shouldn't have to be Breath of the Wild. But like, I understand why fans would want like Breath of the Wild. Like if it is like, like, let's be real. Like, this is probably going to be the closest thing to like Nintendo's last handheld, because like, it's like they're going to keep iterating off of this, like they did the 3. Like, they won't need to make.
It's going to be both. They're not going to make a dedicated handheld anymore. Yeah,
exactly,
absolutely,
exactly. So like, I mean, the 3DS Lite exists, but you know what I'm trying to say. The whole.
But that's the like, 3DS Lite or the Switch Lite.
Switch Lite. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, good looks, but like. We are going to need to hit some point of like big jump for us to, unless it's going to keep being the slow iteration, which it is fine. Like if you jump back from, Pokemon Gen 1 to Pokemon Gen 8, obviously fucking massive differences just in quality, like quality, just in general gameplay. Like the entire game is just, we're going to get into the overall rankings or whatever. I'm just like, old game, old type shit,
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're making a good point here, because if you look back through all the Pokemon generations, I would say there are 2 big graphical jumps, and that would be from 2 to 3, because 1 and 2 like had a lot of similar sprites, and even though they added more color because it was on the Game Boy Color for Gold and Silver, it still wasn't. It was still like same general art design and everything. And then 3, like really like the sprites were massively improved. And then 4 and 5 added some 3D elements, but I think it was that jump to 3 that was really like the big one. And then I would say 5 to 6, because you had the jump to 3D, and then 6 and 7 were pretty much the same with some improvements. And then, like you were saying, this does sort of just look like an improved version of Sun and Moon, and I think that's fair. So I can understand people who are expecting like, all right, we're getting our first technically console main series Pokemon game. I would like to see it be another big jump like the other 2 I mentioned, and I mean, it's also
comparing it to it's comparing it to modern games. Like to me, it's, if you want to compare it to other Pokemon games, then to me it's just, objectively, like Sword and Shield are the best looking, just objectively. You can't really argue with that. For you to complain about graphics for a Pokemon game, like what's wrong with you? But like the game I keep seeing it compared to the most right now is Dragon Quest XI, in terms of like the roster of like moves that just are saved within the game, and then the amount of enemies within the game, and then the amount of animations that you have to interact with all that, and then just the environments and like I haven't bought Dragon Quest XI for the Switch yet. I've played, I think, through all the demo. I'm pretty sure that's why I stopped playing it. And it's fucking awesome. Go Dragon Quest XI. But like that game looks fantastic. Like in handheld on the TV looks fantastic. And then if I were to go from Dragon Quest to the Switch, like I would feel like I was not cheated, but like I feel like I shouldn't have paid $60 for this. Like if it didn't have the Pokemon name brand, it's like the same way that Breath of the. I love the argument of whether or not Breath of the Wild would have been like an actual 7 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 like whether the Zelda name was on it, like if it was just some random action adventure game. Because I think like the environmental mechanics and like the physics of that game are like really, really important for what people are doing now. Like we wouldn't have like a Death Stranding without Breath of the Wild, for better or worse. I still haven't. I still need to play that goddamn game. But I don't know. Like I get it. Like I fucking get it in terms of the graphics, and then I get it in terms of the national decks. Because I saw something on Reddit where it was just like, I don't condone fucking death threats to developers, but also like I have like my Charizard from my red from my red. Like from day one, like my fucking Charizard. Like I know that like you get a Charizard at the end of whatever game, Sword or Shield.
Yeah.
But it's not like my Charizard. I'm just imagining the people that like IV like just this is my team. This has been my team, and then they can't carry that over. Like I get why that sucks.
I don't think this is necessarily a defense, but I mean, people do seem to forget that this happened between Generation 2 and 3. Like, if you have a copy of Red, there is no way of getting those Pokemon to even Gen 3. Like, there was no transferring from Gen 1 and 2 to 3. That's why it was like a big deal when they remade Red and Blue as Fire Red and Leaf Green, and then also Pokemon Coliseum added a bunch of Johto Pokemon that you couldn't get otherwise and whatnot. Like, eventually you were able to get all the Pokemon in the national decks, but it was a similar thing where there was a bunch that were inaccessible because there was no connectivity between the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance. If I'm wrong about that, like, someone can tweet at me, but I'm like, I remember that pretty distinctly, is that was a big issue people had. It was almost treated as like a reboot in that way.
I mean, my thing is, even with that, once the Pokemon Bank is established,
right,
and you release a Pokemon game, like, and you release all subsequent Pokemon games with, you know, the use of Pokemon Bank, like, I don't remember exactly, I don't know, like the example of this is my Charizard from whenever, like whatever game.
Well, in the same way, you can get a Charizard, you can play Red and Blue on like the 3DS and transfer those Pokemon to Pokemon Bank. So they found a way to make it to where you can transfer Pokemon from Red and Blue to the newer games. Just they did it via re-releases. It's not like you can have your childhood copy of Blue. That's just the point I was making. But even then, that wasn't like, I just wanted to establish that because I don't think people are recognizing that enough in terms of like there is precedent for this. I don't think that's a defense or one way or the other. I just like, I think it's worth thinking about that this has happened before, especially because I think the whole national dex thing wouldn't be as big of an issue if Pokemon had decided to take a stand like they're taking now a bit earlier. I've thought for a couple generations now that they should stop adding new Pokemon, or at least only add like 20 and like just refine what they have already, instead of like building to this impossible feat of having like nearly 1,000 Pokemon fully animated, both in overworld sprites and like, again, because this goes back
balancing
to the whole,
all that
like,
too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a balancing issue too, and like, you know, this is why I feel like the whole GameFreakLied thing is a little disingenuous, because it's not really giving credit to the fact that like not only is every Pokemon like in the overworld fully animated in that way. I mean, maybe not battle animations, but in that way. But also like Pokemon Camp. You can literally, every Pokemon you can have in the game is fully animated with a bunch of different animations in that environment too. So there's like all these different things where I can imagine that's damn near like not impossible, but it just would have taken so long and so much resources to do for all 890 Pokemon that there are now. So I've felt like for a while they should start dialing back the new Pokemon, refine what they have, focus on different things, and maybe eventually get to that, again, like 10-year-old dream of having like the ultimate console game that has every Pokemon in every region and all these different things. But now they've made that, that has been impossible for several generations now. There's no way we're going to get a game where you can go to Galar, Kalos, and Kanto in the same game.
So my thing... But, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just... lost my train of thought.
Having a game where you can go to all of the regions.
But anyway, just with the I feel like they should have stopped a while ago, and now that they finally decided this is the game where we're going to take our stand and not include all the Pokemon, it's like it feels weird to me. And as a fan, I wish that they would have done something where they were like, okay, this is the last game where we're going to have all the Pokemon. So like, or this is the last game where we're gonna add new Pokemon, so that way you can enjoy that game for what it is in the same way you enjoy all the previous games. Mm-hmm. But then going forward, rather than it being like this bomb that they dropped on everyone. And like I was pissed when I first found out about the fact that the national dex was like cut in half or whatever. Like that for a little bit was gonna be why I didn't buy these games, and I ended up getting over it. Because part of it I feel like, if you go back and play Diamond and Pearl now, you don't have all the Pokemon. Like, I mean, it's like that you can still enjoy a Pokemon game with only half the Pokemon. Like that, yeah. I think, like, clearly we liked Sword and Shield, but just had they strategized this a bit better, I don't think it would have been an issue. I think this was something that has been a long time coming, and we just have to accept now. They didn't handle it great, but I think it's a problem that was inevitable. I don't think Game Freak created this problem or is trying to cut corners or anything like that. Game Freak created the problem in terms of over the years, but I mean, in the sense of they were giving fans what they wanted until they couldn't anymore. And I feel like that isn't necessarily their fault in the sense of they suddenly decided, now we're not going to give you what you wanted because we want to cut corners on this game. I think it was more just shit, what are we going to do now? Because this is getting harder and harder and, more less and less cost effective. I think, all right, I guess we have to do this. It'll piss off some fans, but they'll get over it.
I don't think it's a matter of money because it's not a matter of money. I don't know their fucking numbers or whatever, but I can say if Pokemon is going broke, then we're all fucked. I'm just going to say that.
Well, but cost effective in the sense of also in terms of labor and time.
No, I was going to say
because they put these games out every 3 years, every 2 years.
Literally, I was going to say it's more a matter of timing than I think it is of money because they have to the new show is starting. If they delay this goddamn game to like Doom getting delayed until March or whatever it's coming out. Hi Chase, Doom getting delayed is not going to really disrupt Doom as an IP or as a brand because it's gonna fuck Stadia's launch, but it's it's Doom. You're just gonna have to wait for the Doom game and then you can play the Doom game because it's just a game. And with Pokemon, it's so we've got the new line of shirts and because also I've seen them try to push more Pokemon clothing, just casual clothing with just little Pokemon, and it looks good. So I am I'm ready to see.
I have a lot of Pokemon shirts. Yeah,
yeah, but they have the new line of clothing, they have the new line of toys, they have the new line of cards, they have the new show, they have all this. If Game Freak came out and said, "Hey, we want to make the best game to Nintendo, we want to make the best game possible for our fans. We want to delay it to March." No, they can't just delay everything. They can't delete the world for I don't know. It's hard to. In my head, I was well, maybe because sometimes they'll have two games being developed at once. I mean, not just a Sword and Shield, but another one
the remakes or whatever.
Yeah, a Let's Go or a the remakes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe instead of the remakes, they have some kind of the Smash Ultimate for fucking Pokemon, where we're not going to create anything new, and right now we're just going to start with gens 1, 2, and 3. Here is Pokemon World or whatever the fuck.
I mean, you're kind of describing Pokemon Go in a way because they just launched we're just going to be the original 151, and then everything just kind of got added over time. I mean, but different kinds of game, granted, but still
with the gyms and the now I'm sounding like I'm describing Pokemon Go still, but with the story and the games as service, but for Pokemon essentially. Super give me reasons to keep coming back to the actual Pokemon game, and I keep describing Pokemon Go. I don't, on principle, I'm not a fan of the mobile game market feeding into the business practices of just games market, the AAA games market or whatever, because that's microtransactions and all that sad stuff. But I'd be totally okay if Pokemon went live service.
Well, it could be done in a way that didn't hinder. If they started charging $10 for 100 Pokemon to be added to your game, that'd be shitty. But
for not just 100 Pokemon and then a new region for $10.
Well, that'd be different. I mean, but if we're talking about the whole Dexit thing didn't matter to me because I felt one of two things was going to happen. One, they were just going to kind of over time add the Pokemon the way they did in Gen 3 via a Diamond and Pearl remakes or some sort of like supplementary game like a, I don't know, Pokemon Lance, whatever the natural follow-up to Sword and Shield would be. Like Emerald or whatever, you know, like Pokemon Axe,
Gun.
Pokemon Armor, I don't know, Pokemon Catapult, but
Pokemon Trebuchet.
Like, you know, I was thinking that they were going to do that, or just like stick to their guns and like make this the best balanced, most like, you know, well-refined Pokemon game because they were taking out the things. And it seemed like, in a lot of ways, they went with the latter. Like, this game feels more balanced. It feels more manageable because there's a lot less Pokemon. It still bothers me. There's going to be a certain point where I'm going to be like, well, I can't have this ultimate team that I want to make of, like, my favorite Pokemon because half of them aren't in the game. I mean, the fact that, like, Bulbasaur's not even in the game is a little heinous. But, like, you know, I think I'd rather they, you know, did one or the other, and you know, it feels to me like they're not trying to, you know, I don't know. We've kind of covered a lot with this. I don't want to go too far into it, but I don't know. I've just felt like it's a little disingenuous to criticize what is largely just a design choice. It's not, you know, it's not a lack of effort or something like that. I mean, and like you said, because they can't really even delay it if they wanted to. So
like it wouldn't even be like a design choice. It's just a design necessity. Like it's
necessity, yeah.
Like you can't, like no amount of crunch is gonna, like it's just physically impossible. It sounds almost like I have no idea how much actual work goes into. Like I'm assuming this is like not an easy job to put together a good Pokemon game every year. So like like I can't, and I already know that like with the fucking death threats coming from these crazy fans, like. Or I don't even know if you should call them fans anymore. Like just
I think if you're sending death threats to the creators of the thing you love, you don't really get to call yourself a fan. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, like I 100%
controversial
agree with
opinion,
that.
But
start the holiday hot takes early. No, I don't know. Like I'm enjoying the game. Like I sympathize with the people that really do get upset like about, because I don't know. Like like if I walk into a town. And especially if I'm online, like if I'm in the wild area or whatever, having a Steelix spawn on me is fucking dumb. Having 3 people just like appear right in front of me is like jarring. But also, for every time that happens, a Pokemon runs out of the tall grass and chases me, and I think that's fucking hilarious. Like
or like you enter a new area where like, you know, a bunch of different graphical elements that are completely unique to that area come in, and it's like, oh damn, they actually put like. You know, maybe it wasn't hours and hours, the same amount of work in terms of like spending hours and hours and hours of coding like all these little things in there, like the different Pokemon and getting it all like in there. But there was more thought put into it creatively of like, how can we make the actual, you know, that, like I was saying before, I think the moment to moment gameplay is vastly improved in this game over a lot of the other ones.
I completely agree. So like in terms of the other ones though, like what are your thoughts on transition? Like what do you kind of think the you know ultimate Pokemon rankings are in your opinion right now? Like what generation is the best? And I guess we're gonna just like go down the list for each of us, and then we're gonna kind of explain our criteria and like our rationale behind that, and hopefully meet in the middle. That's
the thing, we're gonna come at these lists very personally, and then when we come together it'll still just be our 2 opinions, obviously. Because we're the only ones here talking about it. But you know, I think what we're gonna aim for is something that feels somewhat definitive, at least for people who played the games like we did. So, but as for my criteria, before I go down my list, I was thinking of it in terms of the main games of each generation. So, in Pokemon, like at least in the terms of their Pokemon, their region, their characters, etc. So I didn't play Red and Blue as a kid, but I played a lot of Fire Red and Leaf Green.
Same.
So that's sort of like I'm my way in is through those games. I played Gold and Silver; those are my first games, but I'm also considering Heart Gold and Soul Silver in
Gen
terms
2,
of like have my experience within that region. So. When I think of Generation 1, I'm thinking of the original 151 Pokemon, the Kanto region, Team Rocket, etc. Not necessarily specifically Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Same way when I think of like Generation 4, I'm thinking of Sinnoh, Team Galactic? Yeah,
sure.
Team Galactic. Those legendaries, those characters, not necessarily Diamond and Pearl and Heart Gold and Soul Silver and everything that came out in that generation of Pokemon. So that's how I did it. If you have any more caveats to that, then you can say. But just with that in mind, I would my ranking from 8 to 1 is Generation 7. Mostly, as we said, I didn't play that one as much, so we'll get more into it, but just didn't play that one as much. Generation 5, which was the first Pokemon games to ever disappoint me. If we're being honest, yeah.
No, put that on the box.
The first games to ever disappoint me. And then, just because it's the newest and I haven't spent as much time with it, Generation 8 is my number, 6? And then I want to say that after 8, although pretty much including 8 too, all of these are like neck and neck. Like they're probably going to switch around as we talk. So
yeah,
my number 5 is Gen 2, and then Gen 4, and then Gen 6.
Really?
And then Gen 1, and then Gen 3. So from worst to best, I have 7, 5, 8, 2, 4, 6, 1, and 3.
Okay, I wrote those down in front of me so that I can completely compare our notes. It doesn't look like we have anything.
I'll do the same.
Yeah, we don't have anything in the same slot.
Like, really?
At all? Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So this will be fun. So mine from worst to best: Gen 5, Gen 6, Gen 7, Gen 1, Gen 8. Gen 4, Gen 3, and then the best would be Gen 2, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess... yeah.
I have feelings. You just put feelings in my heart right now.
I'm trying to figure out the most controversial. I
personally am most offended by you having 6 so low, but I feel like... I feel like your most controversial is probably having 2 at 1. But
really, so I guess, yeah, like we said, we're just gonna kind of go for it at this point. I don't think there are any there's nothing that I want to address up front other than I will have super random. I remember this kid and whatever stories eventually. I don't have any specifically right now, but that's kind of how I just the personal memories I have attached to the game, less so it sounds dumb, but less so the gameplay, if that makes sense. Well,
like we were saying, we're mostly doing this off of the world and the Pokemon, and rather because I think if we were just to rank these based on quality of the games, Gen 8 is probably the most well designed game. Gen 1 is old, like you said, old game is old. It's hard to. It's I think it's unfair to compare Red and Blue to Sword and Shield in that way. Yeah. So I that's why I didn't want to use that criteria. That said, I think we should go through each generation in order and just explain why we placed it where we did, and hopefully we'll get through this in good time. So starting with Gen 1, you had it at your
number 5 slot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So explain.
And you have yours at number 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. Whenever I think about if I were to go back and replay a Pokemon game, and I know looking back, this is at my list, this is going to sound more harsh than it is, but I just wouldn't want to play Gen 1 again. Frankly, with
Red and Blue or Fire Red and Leaf Green.
I'm saying either adventure, Fire Red or Leaf Green, the same. The original 151 Pokemon are all amazing and they're all fantastic, but at this point, they are the oldest Pokemon. So I just don't have the same level of excitement. I've never felt super excited about I love Pidgeotto, don't get me wrong, but anytime a new that new bird Pokemon in the first area shows up, I'm super excited to catch that. So it's exciting, and I feel the story was I don't know, I like Team Rocket. I like it. Just old game is old type thing. Even with the remakes, it just feels. It's still built off of that older game design, and as much as I still will appreciate it and anything like that, it's just not really my Pokemon cup of tea. Like I don't outright dislike anything from it, so I don't want to give that impression. But like, yeah, it was just kind of fine. It was meh.
Okay, so for context, I want to ask because I'm pretty sure I know, but what was your first Pokemon game?
Emerald.
Okay. So as I said before, mine was Gold, but I think the reason Gen 1 is so high on my list in terms of personal memories and attachment to it is because Fire Red for the longest time, maybe even still, was my favorite Pokemon game. And I think how you rank Gen 1, I think for most people, is going to be a matter of where you fall in the sense of, do you give credit to the thing that set the bar or the credit to the things that exceeded the bar? You know what I mean? Like, it's like when you're ranking MCU movies, a lot of people put Iron Man 1 really high purely because it's like it's the one that started it all.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies here. I didn't put Gen 1 at number 2 purely because it set the bar, but that is a huge criteria for me. As you said, the 151 Pokemon are amazing. Yeah, they're old, but there's a reason they've endured. They kind of set the standard for what a Pokemon is versus, you know, a monster in like Dragon Quest or a Spectrobe or I don't know, a Digimon or whatever. You know,
very
like,
valid. Yeah,
Pokemon set that standard. It's this weird, like, they're animals, but they're different. They've got the elemental powers. Like, it's hard to define in words
Gengar?
what a Pokemon is, but you just know it when you see it. And Gen 1 established that.
Like, I think Gengar is a perfect idea of like what you were just describing. Like, gives off the impression of, it's a scary ghost little guy, but also I kind of want to hug it. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing, it established that. It gave us Pikachu and all the mascot, like most of the major mascot Pokemons. Like, I think the starters are still some of the best. Everyone loves Charizard, but I'm a huge Bulbasaur fan, and I think Blastoise is also incredibly iconic.
Yeah.
And as for like a lot of the stuff that we talked about earlier that wasn't in Gen 8 in terms of like some of these more traditional things, I like those traditions, and for many, many generations I was cool with them maintained, and I felt like Gen 1 was like the one that established it, so I could kind of go back to it as like, this is definitive Pokemon to me. There is an evil team, there is a Pokemon League, the gym leaders are memorable but also mysterious. There's, set pieces that are in the main game and also ones that exist outside of the main game, like catching some of the legendaries. Also, speaking of legendaries, birds, you didn't have the cover legendaries like your Ho-Oh and Lugia and the ones for Sword and Shield as well. But the legendary birds, I think, like the idea of a legendary trio, I feel like the birds are still hold up as the best example of that. And well,
we'll get into it.
Yeah, I think they hold up as the best example of that. And Mewtwo being like this mysterious thing, like in terms of Pokemon, adding to Pokemon lore, obviously Gen 1 established Pokemon lore, but it also put some mysterious background stuff in there that a lot of the other generations would, I think, take a little too far. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of like Arceus the Pokemon god, but I thought like the idea of Mewtwo being this like genetic creation of like Mew, who's like the genetic prototype for every Pokemon. It's just this cool thing that kind of keeps the scientific elements that make Pokemon, not just like a fantasy RPG.
Yeah, like it legitimizes the reason for there to be a professor. The fantasy
elements that make Pokemon fun. The fact that it's still magical in a way. So yeah, Gen 1 to me is like the prototype. So much of it still works. The Pokemon still endure. It's really only personal attachment that it's not higher on my list, because Gen 3 I have more personal attachment to, and even in terms of playing Fire Red and Leaf Green, I know I said I wasn't really using those as criteria, but when I played Fire Red and Leaf Green, I had Gen 3 Pokemon in there, that I traded over. I had the connectivity with Red and Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald and whatnot, but we'll get more into Gen 3 when we get there. But yeah, so that now it's funny that we're doing such like the highest ones earlier on, but now you're number 1, which is Gen 2. So I guess start us off for that as well.
So for caveats, I don't know. I'm a sucker for Nintendo gimmick shit, like any kind of like weird side peripheral any kind of dumb stuff like that. And like I said, I started with Emerald, so like I'm going into this with the idea of Soul Silver being my entry for Gen 2. Like just having the little Pokewalker was such a dumb, useless waste of time gimmick for that game, but I did not leave my house without it. Like I felt so like that was the highest level of attachment I'd ever felt to any of my Pokemon. Like, and since then, like I still haven't hit that like my Mareep and my Typhlosion. It was just at any time I could have them on my hip, and it'd be a little tiny thing. I'm not saying that Gen 2 is my number one because of that. That was just a weird reason to like. I wanted to make sure I got that point out there. Like the Pokewalker was that did have an influence for why this is so high up there. I'm a sucker for toys. And I was an actual child boy back then. In terms of the actual game, like, it was so, and again, it's not the original Gen 2, whatever, it's the DS remakes, whatever. I just remember it being really pretty, and I love the music, and I have, I don't really remember, like, whenever I play a Pokemon game, it's really just spam A through the story until I get to the fun bits after the game, in my opinion. So, like, I remember being in the bell tower and like getting the sacred wing and like going to, and I'm probably butchering all of these terms because I haven't played it in a million years. Tweet at me all your hate. I will mute you gladly. Fucking like
at me. I just won't look at it.
Yeah. At me, but only friendly things.
If you don't have anything nice to say nothing at all.
Like, in terms of the Pokemon breeds, like it had the Gen 1 Pokemon in there still. And then, obviously, once you beat the game, it just completely opens up Kanto.
Yeah. That is huge. And I think the reason why most people still want that like cross region game to exist, because like Gen 2,
you can't do it in the sequel and then never again. Like, and okay, so you've got that. You've got, I love just the Pokemon selection, like Typhlosion. He was my favorite starter for a long time, and then Incineroar came out. But I fucking love Typhlosion. Like I think he's so cool. Like I said, my Mareep was just like I built my. Never mind. Not gonna get into the meta of what I built my team as, but like I just really enjoy the fact that you could have your little buddy Pokemon follow you at all times. That's like the huge deal for me. Like as soon as any other Pokemon game, because I think you could do that in Let's Go. But like I didn't enjoy that game at all, so like it just didn't help. But that was one of the things that I was like, okay, if I can have a little Arcanine following me, like I'm gonna do that. Not to mention, like, in terms of all of the Pokemon anime that I've watched, I'd say like 90% of it, 70% of it was Johto League. Like,
interesting.
Because I mean, this is again weird specific memories, but like going to my godmother's house and she had like a stack of Johto VHSs, and we would just sit there and watch like over and over and over and over again. And like I said, that was the most I had ever been attached to Pokemon as a franchise, and like my specific Pokemon because of the whole on my hip shit. It's like I want to play it now. Like it's one of those. Like I really, really think that I don't know. Like that's it. Why is it so low on yours? It's number 5 for you.
This is probably the one that was the hardest to place for me. I said that like the top like 6 on mine were all pretty interchangeable, and I think 2 is the one that easily could be higher. It probably wouldn't be my number 1, but I could see this being my number 2 or my number 6, like equally. And I think you mentioned a couple things that stood out to me, and I didn't really think about, like the anime. Like my favorite Pokemon movie has always been the one with Lugia, Pokemon 2000.
Yep.
And that's a Gen 2 heavy one.
And it holds
up. I didn't watch much of the anime other than the original run, but I did see a decent amount of the Johto and Hoenn leagues, and I thought they were both really good.
Oh, also Pokemon 3000 with Entei. I didn't even touch on the 3 lions or 3 dogs, whatever.
Yeah,
I think they're the best legendary trio.
I like them. I think, I don't know. I never really they never really give you a reason to care about, like, Entei is like the main one in the movie, Suicune is like the most important to the plot of the game, Raikou is just like there. So like that's why I feel like the birds still are a better example of the legendary trio, because they each have equal importance and there's not like one that stands out, and so that's just like a personal thing with that. But I think I could be convinced to put 2 higher. It's weird because it always, to me, felt like an expansion of Gen 1 more than a standalone generation the way every other one did. And that has been both one of the things I love about it and dislike about it the most. Or maybe not even dislike, but a reason why it ends up falling to the wayside more often than not, is the fact that it does rely so heavily on Gen 1. There is no Johto Pokemon League. It is just the Kanto League that you go to after completing the Johto one. That said, the fact that you can go to Kanto is huge.
That's a huge deal.
The game doubles after you beat it. It's wild. Like, and you can fight all the gym leaders. Like, I remember how disappointed I was when I beat Red Dead 2 and I could go to the entire map of Red Dead 1 and there was nothing to do. Yeah. It was just there. It was just like they pasted the map over and added nothing to it. Whereas
like
that's not what it was in
face.
Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And like I said, Gold being my first Pokemon game, it obviously, holds a special place for that. For Alligator being my favorite starter, probably still to this day, and my first Pokemon. Like, everyone has that special attachment to their first Pokemon. But I think that there are certain things that don't stand out about it, whereas other games have like a lot. Like, the story I think isn't bad, but to me it's the most forgettable, because it's just sort of a follow up to the more memorable Team Rocket plot of Red and Blue. And again, like, I think not having its own like Pokemon League just makes it tough for it to stand out, because that's such a huge part of the game, is like each game's champion and like them being the culmination of that whole region. Like, Johto feels so reliant on Gen 1 that it would be hard for me to put it above Gen 1 in any situation. I think as games, Heart Gold and Soul Silver are still top 3, if not the best Pokemon games. Yeah, I think that in terms of just pure content, improvements to the original, like they're excellent, and they're like the hardest sell for me to put this higher. Now that I'm looking at my list, I
reconsider.
I'm gonna wait till we talk about some of the other ones, but I might switch it around. And I don't think I can put it higher than my 3rd or 4th place, though. I just. It just does rely a bit too much on Gen 1. So
I don't think that's a bad thing. But also, before I forget, what starters did you choose for Gen 1? Because you said you chose for Alligator for Gen 2, and I said that I chose Typhlosion.
In Fire Red, I chose Bulbasaur.
Okay. I chose Charmander for Fire Red. Okay. I feel like once you brought it up, I was like, oh yeah, we should get...
some of these older ones I've played through enough that I've picked one of the starters at one point or another.
I mean, yeah. You know what I mean? I just, for the sake of like... I don't know, like personality testing, like for your first playthrough of whatever generation that we go through. Because like with like once we get to Gen 3, like I know that after a while, like I had a run through with all of them, and like I have fun memories.
Well, let's get to Gen 3 now, and then I'll start for this one because it's my number one.
And I completely understand this. Go ahead.
My first Pokemon, my first starter was Mudkip, but I've probably played more with Torchic and Blaziken in terms of replaying it. I originally had Sapphire, then I got Ruby, then I lost my Sapphire and got Emerald. So I've played through all 3 very more than once. Gen 3, like I said, sticks out also because of Fire Red and Leaf Green. It was really like my first generation that I dove headfirst into because I was so young when I played Gold. I don't think I ever beat it. Like it was just... It was fun, but it was there. It was like a time sink. It wasn't something I got really invested in. And Ruby and Sapphire, I remember this, were the first video games I ever knew the release date of and was excited for. So they definitely stand out in that regard. But I think Hoenn is just... booming with personality.
There's too much water.
Shut up. I think that helps it stand out. And like, I get that like surfing can be annoying, but once you get like, you can just fly everywhere after a while, and then aesthetically it stands out. Like, I think they really went. They took some big swings in Ruby and Sapphire to make them stand out. And I think that story-wise, the Aqua Magma, like having two teams and having them be different depending on which version you play, was incredibly clever. And to me, it still holds up as the best Pokemon story because none of them are like that good. There's not a lot of character development. The villains are usually pretty just villainous for the sake of being villainous. But I thought, like, you know, even if they were both stupid ideologies, having two teams with competing ideologies go against each other was a cool idea. And the fact that depending on which game you played, you could easily frame one as the good guy and one as the bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I thought that was pretty clever. And then Emerald, I think out of all the, like, third games, the sequel games that, you know, improved on the other ones, like your Platinum, Emerald, Yellow, Crystal, etc. Like, I think Emerald does the best job of improving on the original games that it's following up. And then just in terms of like Pokemon, like
it's got some danks, some
it's
danky
probably
boys.
my favorite lineup of starters. It's in contention with Gen 1 and Gen 6, honestly, but we'll talk about that later. But I think Gen 3 has excellent starters. Swampert and Blaziken are two of my favorite Pokemon.
Yep.
And Sceptile's not far behind. Like, Sceptile's really
awesome.
cool, too. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's, and like I said, personality-wise, like, all three of these starters really stand out. Like, Mudkip is popular for a fucking reason.
Yeah.
And Blaziken is badass, like, despite being a fucking chicken. Like, the fact that they leaned into cockfighting by having one of the starters be literally a fighting chicken type is, like, I never picked up on that as a kid. I don't know if that's a good thing now.
Until now.
But it's also just, it's unique. It's just funny.
That's hilarious, actually.
Yeah. And yeah, I just think the variety, the personality, the soundtrack is like, I'm nostalgic for a lot of the songs in Gen 1 and 2. I think 3 had there's so many horns in that soundtrack, and it's got such a unique sound. When you hear a Gen 3 song, you know it's from Ruby and Sapphire or Emerald. And then if we're talking about remakes, Alpha Sapphire I thought was fantastic. I think it contends, like, all three of the remakes they've done so far, Fire Red, Heart Gold, and Alpha Sapphire, are three of the best Pokemon games because they take what's nostalgic and you already love and make them so much better. And there's some things I didn't like about Alpha Sapphire, but playing through those games again with the quality of life improvements of the later generations just reinforced to me how much I love them. I think just the overall Pokemon selection, the legendaries, Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza are awesome.
Rayquaza's awesome, yeah.
The Regis are cool in their own right. As a trilogy, they're not as a trilogy. As a trinity of legendaries, they don't stand as high as like some of the other ones. But
and Deoxys
I thought that was
Gen.
It was a unique take. Deoxys was cool.
Yeah.
They started adding more legendaries, which I think other generations would take a little too far. But I think the ones they had here kind of like push the door open a little bit to have some more Latios and Latias, but they each served a very unique role. I thought that was cool. So I also feel like it had some of the more unique like secrets and whatnot. Like the way you get the Regis is a little convoluted and ridiculous, but it was that kind of stuff is cool. Like, you know, I mean, back in the day when you're buying like the game guide or the internet's still a little new to you and you're like learning that stuff, it still feels like exploration. Whereas now I know, go to Cerebi, look up this one Pokemon, and then I know what to do next. Like, that's just being an adult and the internet being more accessible. That's not a fault of the games, but yeah, it just, for personal reasons and all that other stuff, Gen 3 is my number one. So
you may or may not have swayed me. Like, I keep... Like, you would bring up a point about, like, the music or the fact that all the environments are super distinct, or just the main point you brought up was the starter lineup. Like, yeah, I agree. I think Gen 3 probably has the strongest lineup of starters, like, only in contention with, like, Gen 1, just because of iconography and stuff like that. But like, holy shit, yeah, I didn't play Alpha Sapphire or Omega Ruby. So I switch them. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Yeah, didn't play those, but, like, going off of just so Emerald was my first the first Pokemon game that I owned, and I like got it. My brother, like, so we were not allowed to play Pokemon growing up, like, because of religion or whatever. So, like, but I was always like into it. Like, I would watch the shows when I could. Like, I would I had the cards and I would, you know, And I actually got the first time I like had my hands on Ruby was using some kid's Game Boy in church. So I was like, okay, I can feel this, like the addiction stirring. And then with Gen 3's release, like the startup screen with just you on your bike or whatever, and your main Etric running up next to you, I was like, the Latia, that is replaying in my head so vividly right now.
Again, it's that graphical jump that they took from 2 and 3 that was really stood out.
It was so good, and the
sprite design in those games, like what they were able to do given just the 2D, like one of my favorite locales in Pokemon ever is when you first go under the bike route. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm pretty sure.
There's the bike route that has its own set of challenges.
Minel and Plus, or Minum and Plus.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that same route. Okay. And it's like, because you approach the town where the electric gym is in.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's leaving that town. But anyway, I will always remember that because it's like, what is this thing that I'm walking under? Like, and I see trainers on it, like it just teases ahead. All right. Did I convince you? Yeah.
Yeah, you convinced me. All right.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's go to Gen 4.
All right. So Gen 4 is at my number 3 slot. Again, with a lot of like I feel already exposed saying this. I don't remember Gen 4 that well. Like I was trying to think of the starters, and I was like Chimchar, Empoleon, and the turtle guy. Like I don't Torterra, something like that. Tostada.
Tostada. Yeah.
But like you were saying that Gen 3 was your first time like knowing when a game was coming out. Like that was, for me, that was Gen 4. Like that was I was hyped for the trailers. I convinced my dad like I need this game. Like it was before like I was still a child, but I was already like, look, I'm not trying to fuck around with this whole like, hey, can I maybe the weekend of, this is months out, this game is coming out at this time, what can I do between now and then to earn this game? And then I had to like do a bunch of free throws or whatever. Like I had to work for, as a single digit child, work for this game, and like fucking the DS, like the jump from the 3 or the not the 3DS, the Game Boy SP to the DS was like a huge deal. Like having all of your little Pokemon or like a map, just whatever, and you could swap out whatever you wanted.
The touchscreen stuff they used was really innovative.
Amazing.
I think they did a good job introducing that. Yeah.
Like the mining, I thought the legendaries were awesome. I thought the kind of tricks they did to like add depth to the game, like it's still pixels or whatever, but like it looks so much better than it used to.
Yeah. Like very beautiful sprite art.
Yeah. Honestly, it's in my top 3 mainly for the like impact it had on me as a kid. What about you? Like, why is it your number 4?
I want to establish I didn't really like when I first played as a kid. When I got Pearl, there's an issue with Diamond and Pearl that I think still is an issue. If you go back and replay those games, the pace of the battles is really slow. Like you can sometimes you have to wait like a full second in between like dialogue trees going through like during battles. Like animations like take so long. Like it is. Ruby and Sapphire have a bit of this problem too, but I don't think it's as bad. Diamond and Pearl I don't think are like that well optimized. That said, I played Platinum a few years later, loved it. Loved Platinum. So Platinum is really like my, like I remember playing Diamond and Pearl when they first came out, but Platinum is like my main Gen 4 experience. I never beat the Elite Four until playing Platinum. And my issues with Gen 4 are that a lot of the traditional things I loved about Pokemon were starting to get, I think, either removed or ruined sounds too severe, but whatever, ruined. Like the idea of a legendary trio. They had 3 damn near identical little psychic pixie Pokemon that were a pain to catch anyway. Yeah. Then I thought Dialga and Palkia were cool, but too similar. It was just 2 dragons, you know?
I thought they were different.
Kyogre and Groudon were like opposites. Lugia and Ho-Oh were so unique. And then Dialga and Palkia were just 2 dragons. And then Giratina, who was at least kind of a cool ghost dragon, and playing Platinum, he was emphasized.
And Darkrai.
Still just a dragon. And then I liked a lot of the other legendaries, like Darkrai and whatnot, but this is where I felt like they had too many. They didn't stand out as much. The ones that were cool, like Darkrai, I never caught a Darkrai. I don't even remember how you did it. Like, it was...
No, okay,
like, there were so many Pokemon that were either like the legendaries didn't feel as special anymore. Not that they weren't cool, and not that they didn't have like cool ways of getting them, but some of them were just event specific, and some of them just I completely forgot about. Now, at the same time, there's a lot I really like about the games that now that I've gone back and played them, or at least remembering through Platinum, like, I do think there's a lot of forgettable Pokemon in this generation, but a lot of really cool new ones. I think the starters are good, not great, but still like one of the better starter setups. I could really pick any of the three and be satisfied. And then the main reason, honestly, the number one reason this got above Gen 2 for me initially is the music. Like, I love the music. Like, I didn't think I had as much nostalgia for Diamond and Pearl as I have, but recently I heard some music from one of the early routes in the game, and it is gorgeous. I think this is one of the most beautiful Pokemon games in a lot of ways. The sprite art's great. Yep. I think there's maybe more personality to Gen 3, but I felt like just the presentation of Gen 4 was really, really solid, and I think the music is just so freaking good. And Platinum had this like winter aesthetic where like the opening areas had like snow on the ground, and it was like a different season almost. And there's something weirdly comforting I remember about that. Like this is purely just speaking from nostalgic, like just vague memories of my childhood. But I mean, I just like, I think I would enjoy thinking about Gen 4 more than I would actually playing it now. Same, honestly.
So, yeah. Because when you brought up getting Darkrai, like, I don't think you could actually get Darkrai in Platinum in Diamond or Pearl, like, without breaking the game. Like, I remember that was one of those, I had an action replay, because why wouldn't I? And it was one of those, like, okay, so you have to, like, buy... Like, you have to go to this specific person, buy 999 Master Balls, and then walk all the way off the map, way the fuck over here. And, like, that is... Like, I know that it's probably not a good thing to have, like, oh, yeah, I was breaking the game, and that was fun, like, as a part of my reasoning.
I think a lot of people have action replay memories of, like, Gen 3 and 4.
Yeah, you know? But to me, those are positive memories.
Yeah,
like, I remember, like, staying up way too late and finding weird, like... The video's way too long and you're not getting to what I need to get to. Oh, you're trying to sell me something. And then like that was the first time I learned not to trust everyone on the internet, which is, like, in hindsight, a good first time learning that lesson. But, like,
okay. Yeah. All right. So I was hoping we'd get to this and that I would have a reason. I think I'm rearranging.
Rearranging how so?
I'm rearranging. But start us off on Gen 5 because I have issues, and I want to know your take on it.
So this is the one that I think we agree
was this your lowest?
This was my worst game, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
You have we'll get to Gen 7, but I don't know, man. Like, I just it's really one of those opinion-based ones. Like, I feel like Gen 5 is easily the most divisive, like, regardless of your actual thoughts on it. Like, I feel like everyone can agree this is the most divisive game of all of them. All right, until Sword and Shield. I don't want to, but the main reason it, like, irks a lot of people, and it kind of irks me, like, this is the main reason, but, like, the fact that they really do just full sweep. Like, we're going to get rid of all the old Pokemon and we're going to put in so many new Pokemon. Like, I think Pikachu was still, like, I remember there being...
No, I think it was legit, like, you couldn't catch any but the new Pokemon in the main until you beat the game. And then, a bunch were available. Like, a ton were available. You could get, like, all of them, but yeah.
Like, I remember having a Growlithe, so I was like, whatever. Like, maybe I still could be swapping memories. Regardless, I thought, like, to give it credit, I thought what they did with the... You know what? No, not to give it credit. Because for what they did with the 3D stuff, like, I remember pulling up to one of the towns, like the main town, which was horribly designed, first of all. Just, it was a big... Like, if I remember it correctly, it was just, like, a big circle that was still hard to navigate, even though it was a big circle.
You're talking about, like, the big city?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the main
I thought
centerpiece.
that was meant to be so impressive, but just was really underwhelming. Like, it...
Yeah. It just, in the way that you would go around, like, I remember... Okay, so I'm moving in a circular motion, which is, like, the first time I noticed that in a Pokemon game before. And the world isn't moving around me, essentially. But this looks bad. Like, I remember, like, old game is old, whatever. Back then, I thought it looked bad. So, like, if I can't enjoy the Pokemon and I can't just enjoy walking around. Like, no, don't get me wrong. I do think that we should, like, what they were doing in terms of pushing boundaries. And I remember the gyms being really, really cool, or at least looking cool. But I'm just like, I can't name you not a one character. I couldn't name you like that was N. The villain for that was N.
God.
Right?
Oh God! Don't. I'll let you finish. But I have so many thoughts on the villains in this game.
Like I don't remember them. I don't remember the starters. I don't remember that was Embor and like it's pretty much
Superior and Samurott. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So and for context, after Mudkip, every starter I had chosen after that has been the fire starter. Like not as a like dedicated. I'm going to be a fire trainer. Just like I just have gravitated toward the fire starters.
Oh yeah, we were saying all of them. Gen 4 I took Chimchar. Gen 5 I took Oshawott. So
okay, yeah, I chose I forgot Piglet something. Tepic. There we go.
Yeah.
And Embor was like my least favorite starter. I thought because like lit at the end. I thought it worked.
It was the third firefighting, which everyone was pissed about, and I
love firefighting, so I don't care. But like
show me something different. I don't know.
I thought Score Bunny was going to end up being firefighting, so I was like, cool, let's do this again. Like let's because fucking rock types are annoying to deal with, so I'm just like, let's punch them out.
Fair enough.
Let's deal with it. All right, so why are you beefing with Black White? Black White 2?
As we're talking about it, like to spoil our discussion for Gen 7, it's just purely lack of playing it that it's at my lowest. Like,
okay.
But Gen 5 is really the one that I actually like. I've softened a bit on it over time because I think I was being a little harsh. I was really excited for these games. They came out in Japan first, so I like looked up all of the Pokemon, like knew what team I was going to use, all this stuff. Bought both Black and White at launch, which I'd never done for a Pokemon game and haven't done since. And just took me like a year to beat White, and I never played Black. Like I bought both, and like it was just it was a complete letdown in that sense. I thought that a lot of what they were trying to do was really a good idea, but with the worst execution. The idea of, because at this point Gen 4 had reused a lot of old Pokemon and gave evolutions to them, so there was this reliance on the older stuff. Plenty of new stuff, don't get me wrong, but you were clearly seeing how they were like heavily emphasizing a lot of the old content as well. Plus like the routes, like the first route in that game is like Route 30 because they keep counting up from Gen 1. This is the first one that was like, this is nowhere near any of the other regions. Unova is like in the United States, it's like separate, so we're starting with Route 1 again, and all the Pokemon, like you were saying, are going to be from this game. So
trash,
that
literal trash.
That's the thing. I like Trubbish. That's like one of my favorite Gen 5 Pokemon.
I actually have a Garbodor that I need to send to you. I meant to text you.
There you go.
The weird time to bring it. Okay, anyway, never mind then.
So
before I forget.
But I just felt like if you're gonna do this like reboot, essentially, right? Make it worth it. And I didn't like the Pokemon they added in this generation. I felt like the starter lineup was I think the weakest by far out of all 8 generations. And I didn't care about most of the Pokemon they added. So many of them were clear replacements for ones that they were getting rid of, and I just didn't like the ones that they added instead. I'd rather I don't mind having Zubats. Like it's a bat. Like if you're gonna have a bat Pokemon, just use Zubat. Like I didn't need them to create a new Zubat. Like
I'm pretty sure it's named Woobat. Let me double check.
It is.
I'm so mad.
It's like Woobat and Swoobat, and like. There was some Pokemon I liked. I did like the fossils in this generation I thought were cool. We haven't mentioned fossil Pokemon, but that's one of the traditions I really like. And I did like the one, like the flying rock type fossil that I had was one of my favorite Pokemon from this generation. I thought, but I felt like even worse than Gen 4, they had too many unnecessary legendaries, and even the ones that weren't necessarily unnecessary weren't that memorable. Like Reshiram and Zekrom, again, just more dragons. Like, show me some variety in the design.
Well, one of them was a black dragon, so that was dope.
It was cool. I liked that they were typed, electric dragon's a cool typing. Like, don't get me wrong, but I just, they didn't stand out to me. So, I just... The idea of focusing more on the story in this game, like people say this is the only generation like with a story. I think that's a little harsh, but I get what they mean by that because it's so heavily emphasized. But I don't think it was good. Like, why emphasize it if it's not going to be good? It'd be like if a new Mario game came out with like a really in-depth story, but it was just as like, you know, like I would prefer Mario games just be like, okay, let's go fight Bowser. He kidnapped Peach, or if this is one of the ones where Peach is playable, he kidnapped the castle or whatever. Like, there's a reason those simple things work, and that was the case for Pokemon too. The ones where they elaborated a bit more, like in Ruby and Sapphire, I thought were good. I didn't like Diamonds and Pearls too much because I thought they took it way too seriously. And Black and White, I think, was way more egregious at that.
Yeah.
The whole idea of establishing, no, we're actually going to address the like animal cruelty aspect of Pokemon, but then ending the game with essentially like, no, it's still okay. Like,
no, they like it.
Why engage? It is the number one fatal flaw of Pokemon is that it is dogfighting. But it's better to just ignore it because you're not going to be able to justify it. And honestly, all you can do is say they're cool with it and move on. Like, don't make the whole game about answering a question that you don't answer.
I feel like with like, and this is kind of jumping outside of the games, but like the general understanding of Pokemon now, like one, we've had that argument of like, oh, well, it's just dogfighting, and then the game still sells, so that's not really going to take it down. So like one, I feel like at that point in time, you didn't need to address anything. Like you were saying, you didn't need to address anything. And two, if you did want to like address things, I feel like they address things more casually in later games. I think mostly with like the fact that like I haven't done too much of the Pokemon camp, but I'm going to, because like if it's anything like Pokemon and Me, or Pokemon whatever the other interactable was.
Pokemon and Me,
yeah. If you like maxed out your bond with the Pokemon, then it would like while you're in battle, it'll look back at you and just be like, all right, we're good, let's do this. And like if they get hit real hard, then they'll just be like, they're trying to hold on, but it's because they like you.
Yeah.
So it's like you get that there's some level of like a mutual respect in the later games. And honestly, I tried to shrug it off as like, oh well, they didn't have like the technical fidelity to like have your Pokemon look back at you. You could just have a text bar that says, yo, your Pokemon's chill with this. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Like, don't make a whole new character that spouts a whole weird fandom. Because also part of the reason I don't like N is because there are so many people that love N, and I'm just like, nah, like I don't get it.
He's like the Loki of the Pokemon universe. He's like this mysterious kind of like, you know, I don't know, like
the Loki, but not likable. Like I like Loki. Like I like Loki. I get why those fans freak out. I don't get why fans freak out over N.
But so basically, Gen 5 for me is like, cool, you took a big swing, completely did not work for me. I think it's aesthetically my least favorite Pokemon game, and I just have no desire to go back and replay it. I might just purely out of like, maybe I have some nostalgia, or maybe I need to revisit these games. I never played Black and White 2. I heard those greatly improved on a lot of stuff, but I just had no desire to. So
I totally did play Black 2. I totally played Black and White 2, or White 2.
Well, clearly it stood out. So
I'm saying, like, I like it was easy when I was putting together. This was the easily like, like Gen 3, Gen 2. Like I keep considering back and forth, like, oh, which one is the best out of those? Gen 5 to me is so by far and away the worst. Like, but honestly, let's like move on to Gen 6, because I have Gen 6 at my second worst. But you have yours as your third best as of now, and I know that we're like changing it. But like,
I had Y. So Pokemon Y, I think, was like even more so than Sword and Shield, like really revitalized my love for Pokemon, because Gen 5 disappointed me so much, and at the time I hadn't fully reconsidered my opinions on Gen 4. So in my opinion, I was like, I haven't really loved one since Gen 3, and Gen 6, like Pokemon Y, I think is the graphical leap. I think it's aesthetically gorgeous. I think the music's fantastic. The like France-inspired setting, I thought, made for some really unique locations. I think the starter lineup is one of my favorites. I love all three of them. I thought the typing was unique. You know, having the grass fighting instead of the fire fighting was cool. And then having a psychic and a dark type starter was really, really cool. Like, Greninja is dope, and he's awesome in Smash Bros. As well.
I just realized I chose Chestnut. I said that I chose all of the fire starters from here on out.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I forgot about it.
So, you know, you had to get your fighting somewhere. I chose Froakie for this one, but this is also the last Pokemon game that I played, like, so much so that I had like a bunch of Pokemon trained really high up after the post game. So eventually I had one of each starter trained really high up, and I took on the Pokemon League like a bunch of times for training. I thought the Pokemon League was great. Also, Lumio City, the big central city, which what they were clearly going for in Unova, I thought was handled so well in this game. There was so much to do. There was so much to do. The battle cafes, it was big, but like not overwhelming. There was a lot of side content there as well. And the fact that you could literally branch off and go along all the different routes from there, I thought was great. Also, this is the first Pokemon generation to introduce customizable main characters. And while I don't think that is, like we said, we're not trying to focus too much on new game features that were added in each generation to be fair. But I think that was a big thing, and the fact that they tied it into the game by having so much of the game be about beauty and aesthetics and whatnot, I thought really helped it.
You literally could not walk into certain areas if you didn't look right.
Exactly. I thought that was a cool game mechanic, and one that they haven't fully revisited. Yes, you can customize your character in the newer games, but it's not as important, and it's much more spread out. They just really impressed me. I had so much fun. I beat them in 2 days. I think the legendaries were they pulled back a lot on a lot of that stuff. There wasn't a legendary trio, which was a little disappointing, but considering that I think they went too far in the previous 2 generations of legendaries, I appreciated them reining it in a little bit. So I don't know. Overall, just big fan of everything new, and I think they did a good job of simplifying a lot of the bad. Plus, never mind, that's more game feature stuff. I'll ignore it. But
I mean, so for me, it's not necessarily that I disliked it. It was just I was okay with knocking it down every time I would consider it against something else, it's not so much that I had fun with it, and I remember being hyped for it. I remember going to, or actually Rex, just one of my friends, Rex, he and I went to GameStop night of, and then we went back to his house and we both played until we fell asleep. It's a really I have fond memories of it, but I'm also I don't. It's more so that I know that I have fond memories of it, and that's the only reason it's keeping it alive for me. It's I couldn't remember fucking Chestnut. I couldn't remember. I had the X version. I don't remember Xerneas. Okay, as I'm thinking about it, it's coming back to me. But I'm just this was one of the more forgettable.
Also,
ones
introduction of the fairy type, which honestly at the time I was kind of fairy. That's interesting, but now I think it's added a lot to the game, and they did a good job of focusing on that and exploring it in the game itself. Evolution and stuff. So
as because before my favorite type, or one of my favorite types, was dragon. So hearing, this is going to be the dragon killer, I was no, it's not.
Show me dragon.
Dragons for God damn it.
Still cool dragons in this game though, like Gudra.
I don't like Gudra. I don't like really any
I don't
of the
actually love
exclusives.
Gudra that much, but people do. So I'm
trying to...
This is easily one of my most played Pokemon generations, honestly. So
so I guess picking up with Gen 7.
Really playing that off well. Small technical difficulties. I was about to maybe we should just, but no, that's gonna be awkward. I want to address it. Okay, that happened.
So we are on the opposite ends of the coast. Technical difficulties and everything. We should be fine. Yeah. So you have Gen 7 as your least favorite. You said that's just because of time played.
Pure lack of playing it. I don't think okay. So unique game in that it didn't do gyms. It did the island trials, which were functionally just gyms. But it was unique. They were doing a lot of different stuff. I liked the starters, but after 2-3 weeks of playing it, where I got maybe halfway through the game, I just stopped. And eventually I sold my 3DS. I got a Switch. Don't have it anymore, and I don't know if I'll ever go back. It's not that they were terrible or anything. Nothing stood out as bad. I just wasn't hooked. I felt like some of it was a bit too hand-holdy. I think the routes were shockingly short, and there wasn't that much interesting stuff going on them. And I liked the Hawaiian aesthetic, but this is gonna sound weird, but I feel like they leaned into it a bit too much. Where they definitely did it. They did some of that in terms of Unova and Kalos with their unique locations, but I don't know, something about Sun and Moon, I felt like maybe it was just that I couldn't pronounce half the Pokemon names, but I don't know. I wasn't as big a fan of it as I thought I would be, because I thought it was a really cool idea initially. But yeah, I mean, honestly, this is the one I know I'm the most wrong about. because I just didn't play it enough.
Yeah.
So it's just purely biased on that. So if when we get into our final rankings, if this ends up higher, I won't be upset. I just don't have anything else to say about it.
No, I mean, like, even in my ranking, like at this point, it's probably the one that I've put the most time into, honestly.
Really?
Because that's when I started taking the competitive side. Like, like I realizing like, yo, I could, because like I was trying to mention before I got so rudely interrupted by my computer. Like with Gen 6, I'm pretty sure that's the start of like super training, and where they're really like letting you affect the stats of your Pokemon more directly. Well, that was like really, like, that was a cool introduction. It was a little tedious, and like the mini games attached to it were like kind of boring.
Yeah.
With Gen 7, it was very much like it was faster, it was more engaging. I felt like if I wanted to increase my Pokemon speed stat, I knew exactly how I could do that, and it wasn't hard or boring. So like like for me, I feel weird having it so low here, because I really did put like so much goddamn time into this game. But it was just a matter of like, I don't know, like, just, I don't know, comparing it, it's just kind of meh. Like I like I like the island setting. I like the trials. Like, it does feel like Alola is more like, the region is so much more involved in just your personal going through. Like, it felt more like as I introduced myself to an NPC or whatever, it feels like, oh yeah, we already know each other from, around. Just everything felt very local and communal. I really fucked with that. I thought the horde mode, like the Pokemon horde mode, was really cool.
Wasn't that in Gen 6 though?
I don't think so. I could be very wrong. I'm not sure. At least there's a bigger emphasis in Gen 7 from my memory. I mean, it's fun. Like, I don't have too much to say about it other than that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, wait, no. I'm sorry. It introduced Incineroar, the greatest goddamn, or I don't know, the greatest starter ever in history land ever. Like,
he's fine.
He's everything.
He's like my second least favorite fire starter, honestly.
And you're wrong. When I tell you that, like, so like I said, I was fine with firefighting. I thought he was gonna like, and when they leaked his like final image, because initially it was just Litten, and I was like, yep. It's red and black. Yep. And then they were like, oh, you just see big ass Incineroar and he looks like a wrestler. So obviously we're like, he's going to be firefighting. In my head, I was cool with that, but I also knew deep down they might give me what I want here and make him fire dark. And that's exactly what they did. Like right now we have a bullshit, like the group within the group chat, like we're all different kinds of trainers or whatever. Like I'm a dark fire type because I have always been a dark fire type, maybe electric type on some days, but mostly dark fire. So like you give me a kitten boy that can throw a Pikachu across the map and then you put him in goddamn Smash Brothers. Are you kidding me?
Definitely helps him stand out.
Yeah, honestly, I want to put Gen 7 higher purely because of Incineroar, but I guess we can't do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I do love them though.
Well, let's get into it then, because we don't have to go back into Gen 8 because we've already talked plenty about that in this episode. But just to reestablish, Gen 8 was my sixth and your fourth. Okay. So I, just going down my list again, I had Gen 7, then 5, then 8, then 4, then 2.
From worst to best. I'm sorry, restart that.
Worst to best. Yeah.
Okay.
7, 5, 8, 4, 2, 6, 1, and 3. So I switched 4 and 2.
Okay.
I should probably switch 5 and 7 because it's don't like versus didn't play, really.
Yeah. I would personally feel better if you did that.
I'm still going to leave 7 on my list at the bottom, just purely out of like, it almost shouldn't really even be on the list. But, I won't fight that hard for it. So I go over your list again, and then we'll start combining them.
Yeah, so mine from worst to best would be Gen 5, Gen 6, Gen 7, Gen 1, Gen 8, Gen 4, and then you convinced me to switch Gen 2 and Gen 3 as the best.
Okay. All right. That means that we have a slightly easier job here then, because I think we can just go right ahead and put Gen 3 at number 1, right?
Easily, yeah, at that point, yeah.
It's number 1 on both of our lists. That just makes sense. So then your number 2, which is Gen 2, is my number 4. My number 2 is Gen 1, which is your number... where do you have Gen 1? 5? Okay, yeah. So I guess 2-4 beats 2-5. So we can put Gen 2 at number 2. I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool.
So my next highest is Gen 1, your next highest is Gen 4. So it's what? 3-4 versus 2-5. I think 2-5 wins. Right?
Wait, say that again?
So you have Gen 4. This is hard because I'm just saying numbers, but
yeah, I have 3 different lists in front of me. I'm trying
to your number 3 is my number 5.
Yes.
My number 2 is your number 5. And I'm saying that if we're comparing the two placements, that the Gen 1 being a number 2 and a number 5 beats Gen 4 being a number 3 and a number 5. So therefore Gen 1 should go in the number 3 spot.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I agree with that.
All right, so now we've got your 3, which is Gen 4, and my 5 being Gen 4, and my 3 is Gen 6. So that'll obviously lose. So Gen 4 will be in the 4 spot.
Indeed.
Okay. So that leaves your next is Gen 8, my next is Gen 6. This is a tough one. This is the tough one because you have 6 pretty low.
I will argue for 8 being higher. And I know that it's like early, but I still think that this is like I think that the way that they're implementing like I've been watching a lot of Shofu recently, like because I've been playing Pokemon again. But like he's making really good points of just like this, national dex, graphics, whatever. I feel like this is the first Pokemon generation that has made it like they're really trying to funnel you into competitive. Like like everything that you're doing, like it's just way easier to level up Pokemon in general, so you're not having to worry about being underleveled, which was like, you know, one of the main reasons to grind in the past games. Like all of the things that would kind of hinder you from like you can check natures really easily, you can change natures really easily. You can get an IV checker. You can like get like all the items that you really need for competitive play are like really handed to you. You can remember and forget moves and stuff like that. Like it's gonna end up. I know that like old game is old is like an argument that could be made for all of these, but I feel like the time between 6 and 8, like they could have used some of the stuff. Like I wouldn't even say like technically like in terms of the hardware that they're using, like it's not like they were limited in that regard. Like it was just a matter of ease of use and focus, in my opinion. So like I think whereas Gen 6 gives you a lot to like do by yourself, like I feel like Gen 8 gives you a lot to do in general.
Okay.
And in the max raid areas and like the interactivity and stuff like that, like
that stuff is cool if the online interface were better. And that's one thing I'll give Gen 6 is I think Gen 6 had a much better online interface.
Okay.
And my pitch here for Gen 6 is that I think in terms of Gen 8 being more focused, yes. Gen 6, I think pure volume of content that was of quality, I think has a beat because there is more in the main story, and I know I haven't played all the post-game stuff for 8, but there was a lot in Gen 6's post-game. And then ultimately I think the Pokemon designs in Gen 6 were stronger than Gen 8. And that's a matter of taste. So if I can't convince you on that, then, you know, we'll flip a coin. But no,
I get it.
I think our main criteria thus far has been the region, the Pokemon, and like the characters. And I think in that sense, Gen 6 stands out a little bit more. Like better rivals in Gen 8, probably better gym leaders, but I think I liked the friend group dynamic that you had in Gen 6. I think the Pokemon are stronger.
I was gonna say the friend group annoyed me in Gen 6.
Really? Yeah. I've heard that. I know you're not the only one who thinks that, so I'm not really surprised. But I enjoyed them.
Like at this point, I'm down to concede and put Gen 6, but I'm also no. Honestly, if you didn't bring up the rivals, like I had it written down, and now you bring up the rivals, and I'm like, that was a big like out of all of the Pokemon spam A through the story moments, the rivals were like
okay. Well, here's my argument in defense of that, though. Okay. So Gen 6 had a lot. All your rivals were your friends, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that's a thing people take issue with, but at least they gave you time to be their friends. It wasn't just like, all we're going to do is battle and we'll say we're friends. And like Gen 8 was pretty much like, he's your friend, but all you do is battle and try to be better than each other. So the actual friend dynamic didn't really get like explored at all. Whereas like Gen 6, I distinctly remember, I think it's in the Pokemon Chateau. There's this one location where you just kind of stand and like watch the sunset with one of your rivals.
Yeah.
And it's like this
huge waste of time.
I thought that was a really sweet moment, and it developed the friendship. And like I like the idea that your friends had like a unique nickname for you and stuff. Like if there were, as far as going for the friend rival concept, I think it by far is the best example of that.
I so far and away completely disagree with you in that regard. So with Hop, I like the fact that I agree that it's cool that like instead of you just meet some kid and then you start fighting. Like I like the fact that I could tell that me and Hop have been hanging for a while, and like he's not just some, like I remember one of the kids in like one of my rivals in the early Pokemon games was like, I want to make music. Why the fuck are we battling then? like with Hop, like his older brother is the champion. He wants to be like his older brother, and like since I'm the fucking chosen one, like he's going to keep battling me. And like you said, I liked how his team grew with him, and like I know that it's very, very limited by the time credits roll, but like by the end screen, they didn't do a lot, but like there is character development for him. Like in terms of,
I'll give you that. I think as a standalone character, Hop is better than any of the rivals in probably any game. I mean, I think in terms of development, he's probably one of the best rivals. I just think the actual like friend, like the part of it that is the characters being your friend, I thought was more well handled in Gen 6. But like I'll concede that point.
I'm now wanting to go back on my concession for pushing.
We could flip a coin.
It's up to the gods, man. I don't know. Pull the black card. You know, just it's the new game. It's new. Maybe Hop will annoy me more over time, but I'm just trying to. And no, you know what? No. Because I still, and I'm gonna say that Gen 8's new Pokemon are pretty cool in terms of like I like the fire poison guy, or not the fire poison, the dragon poison guy, Dragon Ghost. He looks like a shit ton of different like the stealth bomber dude. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Lizard Man, like him. I like obviously the legendaries are incredible. Or Sword Dog.
I like them, but it's just two dogs.
A dog with a sword in its mouth. Like,
okay.
I genuinely got emotional when I saw that for the first time.
Yeah, I know. You're a softie. I get it.
I am a softie, but I'm also like...
Okay, look. We're just dragging this on. We've talked about these. We're almost at 2 hours on a recording here.
Fuck, yeah.
We need to make a decision here. Either
I say Gen 8, fuck the legendaries that are literally just letters. Like, sure, they're dogs, but the other ones are just letters. So I say hard Gen 8. Cool. No, they're not.
It's a... Like,
it's a Y. I thought it's a Y. I do, and I like him. It's just he's a Y. Like.
All right, fine. I'll put you there.
Yes, he's a Y, and then there's a deer.
All right. So 8 and then 6. So what's that leave us with? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 and 7.
5 is the worst easily.
All right. So then we'll do 7, 5. We wasted so much time there. Oh well.
Yeah. It's fine.
Okay, so we've got our definitive ranking of all the Pokemon generations. Let's count them down. We can alternate here. So at number 8
is Gen 5. At number 7
is Gen 7.
At number 6 is Gen 6.
At number 5 is Gen 8. God, this is hard to read.
Yeah, it's really hard. At number 4 is Gen 4.
At number 3 is the first generation, Pokemon Generation 1.
Number 2 is Pokemon the sequel.
The sequel.
Pokemon also.
And number 1 is 3.
Honestly, the title for this episode should just be 1 is 3, 2 is 2, 3 is 1.
I don't want to be that confusing.
Numbers.
Okay.
And Pokemon beasts.
So, that is our definitive ranking of the Pokemon generations. Let us know what you thought on social media. I'm so mad 6 is so low. But again, as I said before, the top 1 through 6 are really interchangeable for me, so it's fine.
Yeah, as long as the universe agrees that 7 and 5 are not that good.
Yeah, then
we're okay.
There are some Alola stands out there, so I'm sure we might get some heat for that. But yeah, that's our list. Let us know what you thought. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I doubt many people are going to completely agree with us. This is Pokemon after all.
Yeah. But I heard a lot of people saying, like, when Pokemon Go came out, that was the closest we ever got to world peace. But then I'm like, if everyone started playing Pokemon Go, then the, like, faction wars would begin.
Yeah, so, I mean, exactly. Like, Team Valor, the other ones. I don't know. Yeah.
Because, exactly, Team Valor was
Team Valor for life. Yeah, cool. So that's our episode of Loosely Defined. Very obviously Pokemon exclusive this episode, but next week we're going to cover a whole branch of topics because we are doing our annual holiday hot takes.
That's the sound effect from now on.
Next week, coming off the heels of all your arguments with your family from Thanksgiving, you can come argue with us about hot takes. Everything. We're gonna give hot takes on games, movies, TV shows, comics, just a whole bunch of stuff. We're gonna try to piss each other off and hopefully piss off the audience. That'll be fun.
I'm actually very much looking forward to this. Like, I've been building up. Like, once we knew that we were bringing back Loosely Defined, like, this was one of the things I've been preparing for.
Yeah, no, this was like the first episode we knew we were going to do. So stay tuned for that next week. Check us out on YouTube for the clip outs, as well as Loosely Defined Universe on YouTube for the full episodes. Maybe you're watching us on there right now. And more to come on both of those platforms. And also, make sure you subscribe to this feed and you like and you favorite the episodes so we get some ratings in there, and then
please
hit us up on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, where can I find you on Instagram and Twitter, Edward?
That's E Wilshire Prime on Twitter and Instagram. Also my byline on cbr.com. Also my other podcast, the Save Greendale Committee, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else. Community retrospective podcast. Yeah, check it out.
So nice. Have I been on that show before?
Once or twice.
Once, twice.
We're taking this week off for the holidays because the show did as well. So, next week we'll be back with a new episode. So check it out.
Word. And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Brother Grimm Bo, 2 M's. Mm-hmm. I forgot my handle for a second. Brother Grimm Bo. Follow me.
All right. Well, thank you for sticking with us. And until next time, what do we say now? Stay loose.
Stay loose.
Hashtag stay loose. Tweet about Loosely Defined. Add us at Defined Loosely. I forgot we have a show on Twitter at Defined Loosely because Loosely Defined was taken, and we have an Instagram at Loosely Defined because we got that one. So
yeah, at Loosely Defined on Twitter. You've got like 11 people following you, and you haven't tweeted in who knows since 2011. Let's talk this out reasonably as adults.
Maybe we can get that handle eventually. But until then, it's at Defined Loosely. Follow us on there for show updates and Instagram as well. So until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you're on YouTube. And stay loose.
Stay loose.
All right.
It sounds so dirty.